Hey there, it's Nick Terzo, and this is the Radical Podcast. No, we won't be overthrowing any governments, but we will be learning from radical creatives who rule the world. Welcome back, all you radicals. We're inching toward the close of summer 2020, and I have a sneaking suspicion no one will miss it. On today's show, it's a bit of a departure from our music focus, and my guest is actor Jonathan Bennett. Not that there won't be a bit of a music twist toward the end of our chat, which has something to do with a singer named Ariana Grande. Jonathan has participated in the spectrum of acting, from playing lead roles such as Aaron Samuel in the classic Tina Fey film Mean Girls, to being Steve Martin's son-in-law in Cheaper by the Dozen 2. He has gone on to act in many other film roles, but has also not been afraid to explore TV alternatives such as Dancing with the Stars, Celebrity Big Brother, and the Food Network as a host. I've known Jonathan for, I think, a couple of decades, so our conversation today is going to cover a lot of ground. Coming right up, my chat with Jonathan Bennett. Hey, Jonathan. How are you today?
Hello, Nick Terzo.
How are great. You? Where are you quarantining? Where are you?
I am in Las Vegas, Nevada, and this is where we are quarantining at the moment. We were in LA for a while, but then, it's so crowded and everything was crazy there. And so we came to Vegas because we had more space and didn't have to be around so many people, which makes us feel way safer. So we were in Vegas, but however, it is the low this week was 111 and the high was 116. So
lovely.
Just basically,
lovely.
Yeah, you're like basically in prison. You're like, I'm not leaving my house ever. So if it's not COVID, it's the heat. So It's a good reason to stay inside.
Well, you guys are rivaling the temperatures and probably that you received from COVID if you were inflicted. So with 116.
Exactly.
So how long are you guys going to be out there? Is it just indefinitely until this kind of passes?
Yeah, we there's no really end date of when we're going to leave here. So we're going to stay until we think it's time to go back. But who knows? Like, I don't know what's going on with the world, Nicky Terzo. I don't know. Like, maybe we're here forever. Who knows? What's the point of living in LA if there's nothing to shoot? Like,
you're right about that.
Let me give you here, do you have $1 billion so you can buy a house that's the size of a shoebox? Because why not? That's what we keep throwing around. The idea is, why live in LA? With the way Zoom is happening and, Skype and all the different things, it's all digital now. Like, I just don't see, as an actor and a host, I don't see us ever walking into an audition room again. Do you, Nick?
Right. No, I think it's going to be weird for a while. So
right.
Why don't you guys just come to Nashville? Come on, we're all down here. Come on down.
Okay. So it's so funny you say that, because my sister is currently driving to Nashville as we speak, because my niece Hannah Herner lives there. She works for a paper there called The Contributor. She is a writer, and The Contributor is like an amazing newspaper, kind of like weekly thing that goes out, and people who, I'm going to screw this up saying it, but there's something along the lines of, like, I don't know the exact details, but if they're, people that are homeless or are low income or poverty type situations, they can go and sell The Contributor and make the money. It's like a whole really cool organization to help kind of, put money in some people's pockets that are extremely low income.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's a neat little paper, and she writes for it. So my sister's going to Nashville right now. So we keep getting pulled to Nashville. I think I'll be in Nashville sooner than you think, Nick.
Uh-oh.
We can open a restaurant or something. Well, no,
I don't know if opening a restaurant's the right idea.
Probably the worst thing.
Bar
we can open
would come
a
before
clinic
that.
to give shots. Yeah, exactly. A bar would be great.
Something like that. Yeah. So I've known you forever, it feels like, or half of your life. Let's put it that way.
No, more than half. Yeah, you have. That's insane. I have the biggest smile on my face right now talking to you. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. And so we're going to talk. I don't want to go through like a timeline here. It's just talk. I'm going to jump all over the place.
Yeah, let's talk.
Just like your thinking goes, that's how I'll be working.
Yeah, so you'll be Well, yeah, I mean, you've known me, you represented me for years. You know how it's, take a bouncy ball in a room and just throw it and see whatever wall it hits. That's the way you follow my brain.
Yes. So we're going to talk, I guess we'll start at the beginning and then we won't ever
Yeah.
stay there for too long. But you were raised in Rossford, Ohio, yes, and grew up
Hmm.
there. A perfect Midwest upbringing.
I mean, Nick, what's so wonderful about talking to you is you are one of the few people that are in my life that knew of my late parents. You knew
I
my mom
did.
and dad really well, talked to them extensively.
Both
But yes,
beautiful, beautiful people. So
I grew up in Rossford, Ohio, which was a very small town right next to Toledo, Ohio. I always say that I am who Applebee's was made for. Like that's like 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 if you want to describe like what was it like growing up in your town, like we are the reason Applebee's existed. Like we are that small town, middle America. Just you go to Applebee's or Denny's after the football game on Friday night. Very Friday Night Lights ish. Midwest upbringing, great upbringing, small town. But at the same time, growing up there is a little tricky because let's just say that in 1994, when I entered high school, needless to say, there were no pride parades. Okay, there was no parade going down the center of Rossford, Ohio, with people dancing with rainbow flags. Didn't happen there.
you could have been that parade.
Yeah, I kind of was. Like, I was the secret pride parade of Rossford, Ohio. They knew, but they didn't know it yet. But who knows?
Yeah,
I mean, can you imagine going back and doing one? That'd be so fantastic.
that'd be great. So,
Yeah.
so did you do when you were there? Did you get involved with like theater even in high
Yeah.
school, or yeah, you were
Oh my gosh.
full in,
I was a
all in?
full, oh, Nikki, I was a theater nerd. Like, I was as Glee can be before Glee was Glee. Like if Chris Colfer had a spirit animal on Glee, I was that spirit animal. I grew up with every musical, every theater production, every play. Like I was not, if I wasn't cast or the lead of it, I was either directing it or in charge of it. Or like backseat directing it because telling the director everything he did wrong. I'm like, I don't think they should enter from stage right. I really don't. Will, and I would get into big fights with him about how I thought the play should go. It's kind of like I guess I was like from Waiting for Guffman, like Corky Sinclair, but if Corky Sinclair grew up in Ohio, that was me. Uh, it
Did
was a
you take any
simpler time.
formal? Did you take any training though, or did you just kind of go
Yeah,
through the high school theater thing? Or
I went through high school theater and then I went to college and I um
where at?
at Otterbein College in
Otterbein.
Columbus, Ohio. Very small liberal arts college, and it was so funny because I was in. Speaking of theater, when I was in a junior, we did a play called Blood Brothers, and a rival high school that was in Cleveland, that was also a very good theater school. They did it as well, and so their cast came to see our show. Our cast went to see their show, and we became friends with them. And one of the kids in the show was named Tony Gonzalez. He became my best friend. We would, ever since we met doing the show, we would go every weekend to either Cleveland or Toledo and like make our parents drive us, or we would basically have, okay, each of our parents are going to drive halfway and they'll do a drop off and a pickup. And then at the end of the weekend, we'll do the same. And so I grew up with him as my bestie. And then college happened and we both applied to Otterbein College. He applied to be in musical theater. I applied to be in acting, and we both got accepted. And it was so fun because when we first met, we go, "Let's go to college and be roommates and be best friends." We're like, "Great!" And lo and behold, we both got accepted to this crazy program that only accepts 7 acting majors and 9 musical theater majors a year. And we both got in, and so we moved to college and had my best friend with me, which was amazing, and that's where we studied. I studied, acting, some music, some dance, but mostly acting. And then I think after about a year and a half of it, I was like, yeah, I'm a year and a quarter. I was laying on the ground, like pretending to be a tree and like pretending to drink like fake tea and mime it. And I go, my parents are paying $50,000 a year for me to lay on the floor and pretend I have roots that grow into the imaginary floor here like I'm a tree. I'm like, can't I just take this money and go to New York And
Hmm.
so I called my parents and told them I wanted to quit college. And most parents would be like, "You're crazy." But my parents, I'll tell you what, they always said, I mean, you had conversations with them, but like from the day I was born, they always knew. They were like, Jonathan's going to be an actor. Like he's like, that's it. There's not even a question. And so they were supportive when I said, "Hey, I want to move to New York and make it in the big city. I want to move to the Big Apple." And my mom loaded me up in the truck herself with like, I literally showed up to New York City with two suitcases and a dream, and like stayed at this model house for a while, and I lived there and like used that to like have a place to stay and live for cheap. And while I was doing that, I started auditioning. So that was my training. Like I did it for a year, but it wasn't like, as far as like actual acting training, it wasn't the most extensive in college.
Right. So you go off. Fortunately, Ruth Ann and David are uber
Uh-huh.
supportive.
Yep.
So it's not like the rebel kid. I got to get to New York and,
Yeah.
I'm going to take that town, sow my oats. I'm
Yeah.
going for it. So you get there, you do some modeling. I mean, you have to go and do this stupid auditioning
hmm
cycle. Um,
Yep.
and how soon until you got like all my children?
Wow. I think it was maybe about a year. Like I think it was I want to say it was like a year or so. 'Cause to be honest, I'm so old that I'm looking back and I'm like, I can't remember the timeline. It was right about a year. Like I know I wasn't there for too long, but I was there for like 6 months to a year, probably in that zone. I booked my first job on all my children, and I remember the story, which is my favorite, and I know you've heard it, but I want to tell everyone, like the casting director, because auditions are just stupid. Like they're just dumb. Like whoever thought of this idea of auditioning is just like, it's just a disaster. You walk in this room, and these people are like, okay, we're going to judge everything on what we're going to spend millions of dollars on. We're going to invest in you and like make this crazy movie or TV show. We're going to base all this on you driving here or getting on a subway, being stuck on a train, late, run in. You're going to come into this room that has no energy and is the coldest room in the world. And we're going to have you read these lines against someone who's not the person you're going to be reading them against. And then we're going to make a decision if you should be that person or not. Like insane. But I digress. And so I went into this audition for all my children, and the other character had a monologue. And I remember they were reading the monologue, and I was just bored. I thought this was stupid. I was like, this is dumb. And like in my head, I'm like, over it. So I lean against the wall and like look around the room. And when I booked the job, the casting director, Judy Bly Wilson, was like, well, the producers just loved on the tape how, like, you know, how you didn't care and you were so nonchalant, and like just, you were just acting like this bad boy. And I was like, oh, no, I was just very bored. But hey, if they want to read it as that, go for it. I'll take it. And
That's
so I booked
great.
all my children, and that was my first gig. And that was the fun times. You were around for that, Nikki. Like that was the Josh Duhamel, Kelly Ripa, Mark Consuelo, Susan Lucci, Rebecca Budig. Like
Yeah,
that was
there was
that
a
was
little
the fun
talent in the
times.
house.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was a fun cast to be involved in.
Yeah. And then when you did that, because I think I was in LA, you were in New York, so I don't
Yeah.
a little disconnect there. But I mean, was
hmm
that almost a 5 days a week kind of gig for a
Yeah.
couple of years?
It was your waiter job, and I think that was the best thing you could ever do. Instead of paying to go to college to learn how to act, I literally got all my children and was paid to learn how to act. And like when you are just thrown in and just have to do it, you learn real quick what works and doesn't work. And I think that's the best education anyone can have. Like just doing it, you will learn more than by like sitting in a room learning about how to do it. You'll just go and do it, and you'll figure it out. And that's what I did. So it was 5 days a week, and the schedule was grueling, but at the same time, you were a working actor on a soap, and you were like, what, 19, 20 years old, living in New York City. I'm like, I'm young, I'm hot, and this is cool. Like I'm hot shit. I'm on a soap. Like you
Yes.
had this like, it was just a fun time to have for college years.
But it's a grindy thing, and
Yeah,
I mean, for
totally.
an actor to have that as its kind of your first foundational
Yeah,
job,
it's
let's say.
exhausting.
I mean, it's sides, sides, sides. I mean, so I
Yeah.
guess it really does help you memorize going down the road, like after
Uh-huh.
that experience. So,
Oh, absolutely. You get a script. And you're like, okay, here's tomorrow's show. Learn the whole show, and then you'd go in and shoot that. And then right when your brain would turn off from like what you just said for the day, they're like, here's the next script. Go learn it. It's tomorrow. Like you had no time to do anything but learn lines and sleep. That's
it's
all you
like
did. So,
boot camp, total
yep,
boot camp.
exactly.
So, and then, so you did that for a couple of years. You kind of make your way to LA for your first pilot season,
Hmm.
and you you got a pilot, right?
Yeah, no, no, we didn't go to LA. We were still in New York,
You
Nick.
were still in New York,
I
but you
I
came to
was in New
LA for
York.
pilot.
I came to yeah, I flew here and it was my first time being in LA ever. I flew here on on a flight courtesy of Fox, 20th Century Fox. Like I flew here for the Eastwick pilot audition and booked it and then flew home and went to Toronto to shoot it, right? Like it
No, you
was
shot it in Vancouver.
Vancouver, sorry, yeah, Vancouver. Well, between both of our memories, we'll put it together somehow. um, yeah, so I flew to Vancouver and shot the pilot, and that was my first like prime time show. Which you saw the pilot, Nick. Eastwick, the
Yes.
pilot, was so frigging good and so ahead of its time, and just it was such a fantastic show. It was me, Chris Evans, Riley Smith, Lori Laughlin, Kelly Rutherford, and Marsha
Jason,
Cross, and
well,
Jason O'Mara.
Jason O'Mara, man. Yeah.
Oh, and Jason O'Mara played the devil. It was the best. It was probably my favorite one to this day. Top three favorite projects I've ever done. It was
Yeah.
just so cool, and they said it was too campy. Right, that was the direction. It was too
Yes.
campy.
Yeah.
And then Desperate Housewives comes out like 3 years later, and they're like, "Oh, really? This was too campy." Like,
So clearly that didn't get picked up, but
no.
hey, you scored a pilot your first
Yeah.
season without even being in LA necessarily. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So then did you move to LA after that? When did we convince
Yeah.
you to kind of
We
move
can,
westward?
yeah. And to this day, I regret giving up the apartment that you rented for me because it was so good. I moved to LA. My mom was like, Nick, find him a place. We signed a lease on a place sight unseen. Nick went and checked it out and said, this is where he wants to live. Went there. It was the best apartment I've ever seen. Looking back at it, it was so good. But we moved to LA like that next year and started doing auditions here, hitting the grind. And this is back in the day when you would get auditions faxed to you or
Yep.
mailed to you,
Yep.
like or emailed to you and printed, and they would send it to you. And then the audition notes of like how to get there would have the Thomas Guide like coordinates, and you would have to look in this giant map that you leave in the back of your Ford Escape, at a yellow Ford Escape. And I would leave, you have the Thomas Guide in there, and you have to like, the audition would say, go to page 27 of the Thomas Guide A17. And you'd look there, and then you'd have to figure out how to drive across this massive city after just being here like a week and go to these auditions and then show up and be good. And I remember I got mad at you so much on the phone because the first time I was looking for an audition, I called you and I couldn't find it. And I was like, Nick, is it north or south? 101 north or 101 south? And I was going to Burbank. But 101 north and south and 101 east and west is pretty much the same thing. But if you don't know, you're like, it's east. And I'm like, or you're like, it's north. I'm like, there's not a choice for north. It's west or east. And you're like, what? And I'm like, it's west or east. And I got on the wrong freeway and started driving the wrong way because it like switched over and I couldn't understand the 101 at first. So I wasn't really mad at you. I was just like, which one is it? You're like, north. I said,
Yeah.
there is no north.
Yeah, unfortunately, north really becomes west through the valley.
Yes.
So, you come there, you start doing your auditioning, you book, TV guest appearances, right to start, I
Yep.
guess.
Did a couple
Um,
guest stars.
and then when did Mean Girls fall into that? How long were
Shoot.
you out there?
Wait, I can tell you. I can tell you the date. I have it in my email right here. I can pull up the email.
Listen to
Um,
that.
yeah, look at this. Hold on. Look at this. I mean, we can go back here. It is
2003 or
yeah,
4?
no, 2003. Yeah,
Yeah.
2003. I went on an audition for Mean Girls, and that you sent me on, and it was an audition with Marnie Spears, the like assistant casting director. And I walked in and I auditioned for it. And I remember her going, "Hold on one second," and going and getting Marcy. And she was so fantastic and sweet. And going and getting Marcy Learoff, the casting director, and was like, "You're going to do this again." And I do it again for Marcy Learoff. And then they said, "Okay, you're going to have a callback." And I come back in and do it for like Mark Waters and some other people. I forget who. I know the director was there. And after doing that, the screen test happened, right? And the screen test you took me to, it was in Culver City, right?
I thought,
It was at
I don't
that
know.
theater.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was at
I
that
can't
theater in
remember.
Culver. Yeah, yeah. There was a theater in Culver City that you drove me to because I was so nervous. And well, first of all, you were like, "You need to go watch Freaky Friday because this girl that you're going to be doing this movie with, if you get it, is named Lindsay Lohan." I said, "Who's that?" No idea.
Right.
And I had to go watch Freaky Friday at the El Capitan Theater, which was a really cool like Hollywood moment. You're at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood watching a movie of the co-star you're possibly going to have soon. Like that's a cool moment. So,
That's good.
so I go and I audition, we go to the screen test, and the screen test was in this theater that you had to like walk up these stairs, and you drove me and you dropped me off and waited for me to come out, and it was a whole debate like what color shirt was I going to wear, and we had like I had to go get a haircut. I remember I go to that guy Tyler who cut hair for us.
Yeah.
He was like the
Yes.
hair cutter, and Tyler gave me this haircut that was like the Justin Bieber before the Justin Bieber. He was like, "You're gonna do this. You're gonna keep it shaggy. It's gonna look so good." It was very 2003. And he gives me this haircut, and we like figure out what color I'm gonna wear. It's gonna be this maroonish color. It looks really good on camera on me. And we go in for the screen test, and Lindsay's there, and I remember I make her blush on camera, like we're having the audition, and I literally make her turn red. And Mark Waters saw it, and he just was like, "Yep, there it is. That's the actor." And then I go back to my job at Abercrombie and Fitch folding sweaters, and and this was such a crazy moment. And then they called you, and they're like, "Yeah, he didn't get it, right?"
Yeah. Yeah. There was, um, it was weird. It wasn't almost like you
Yeah.
did. It wasn't like you didn't get it. It was like Sherry Lansing, who ran
Yes.
Paramount Studios,
Yep.
thought that there should be a blonde actor opposite Lindsay, not a dark haired actor. And so
Right.
then it turned into this whole thing because everyone around from, Mark Waters, Marcy Learoff,
Lauren Michaels. Yeah.
really wanted you. And I called Lauren's office. And so we got in this whole thing. And it was like, we're really being held up because she wants a blonde. And so
Right.
that's kind of what happened. So in a weird way, you never didn't not have it, but it went sideways in a weird way.
Yeah. This
So
weird thing happened. I was kind of like, "You're not going to get it. Don't get your hopes up." And I remember just kind of being like, "Okay." And then I was coming home from working at Abercrombie and Fitch, and you called and left a voicemail while I was working, and I was like, "You're like, call me back." I was like, "Okay." And I call you back, and you're like, "You got it. You got the part." And I remember being like, "I don't understand," like confused that like, "Wait, we already said I wasn't getting it." And they're like, "No, you got it, and you're getting on a plane tomorrow to like to Toronto. You're leaving." And it was I had like 1 day to prepare. And I remember calling my best friend Sam Page and
Sam
just
Page.
screaming into the phone. I'm like, "Rah!" And I'm like screaming out in that courtyard of my old apartment. And everyone's
Yep.
coming out. And I was like, "I booked a movie." And I just like, who knew that that moment right there? And that's the thing, like that one moment right there when you book Mean Girls and you do it, your whole life changes. Your whole life changes. I don't know what my life would look like without Aaron Samuels in it. I
Right.
don't. It'd be a different life. It'd be weird.
Well, and I mean, and look, you can get on the set and kind of get a sense of how things are. And I find it more difficult in film to kind of know, hey, something good's happening here. And this is going to be a cultural moment.
Right.
You kind of can't, I don't know. I don't get that from film as much as I did when I was in a recording studio, when you really knew kind of what was going down. So,
Right.
but ultimately, I mean, you're doing the great work. You're surrounded by amazing coworkers. So
Right.
you got to think something good's going to come. But then it just becomes this cultural zeitgeist that's crazy. You can't
Yeah.
expect that to that degree.
I mean, I don't know. It just something happens, and it changed your life. Like, we knew it was going to be good when we were filming it, but it wasn't until we saw it the first time in that little theater at Paramount when we were like, wow, 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 this is going to be great. Like, once you see it for the first time, you're like, it hits you. You go, oh man, this is special.
Yep. It was. What do you even know? Like, because I don't pay attention to things too much anymore these days. But like, what did that ultimately end up grossing? Like, as of today, do you know how much money it's
Um,
made?
yeah, I can look this up right here.
Oh, you don't have to look it up.
Yeah, let's do it. Mean Girls gross. It's made over 130 million dollars.
Yeah, that's not bad.
No.
That ain't chump change. So that comes out. You have to do a ton of promotion around that, right? Once
Yep.
it does come out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's an interesting film in a way because your characters, cemented in some ways culturally. But as the lead guy in that film, you didn't career wise, you didn't win as much as the girls in the film did, right? I mean,
Right.
it was really kind of more a female character development movie in a way,
Right.
between McAdams and Amanda. It just launched a lot of great female actors. And I kind of feel like that may have kind of overrun the male lead a little bit. It's a numbers
Yeah.
game ultimately.
Yeah. It did. For sure. It's hard to be. You're like the object of affection in you're the object of affection in a movie that's focused on you, but it's about the girls. So it's a weird
Mm.
thing to be involved in. It's a weird it's definitely, I don't know, it was a weird character to play. It was also just weird because, like Tina, I ran into Tina Fey 2 years ago on October 3rd at the Broadway show,
Mm.
and she goes, well, at least everyone loves you, right? And I said, yeah. She goes, at least it was written for that. Like, she goes, they could be calling you a fugly slut or something. And I go, no, you wrote it well for that. We talked about it. Like, it's impossible to watch the movie and not like Aaron Samuels. Like,
Right.
it's a subconscious thing that happens when someone's watching the film. Like, they automatically just like you because the way Tina Fey wrote it and the way everyone has the object of affection for you and everyone has a desire for you. They kind of plug it in subconsciously for the audience that you're just going to like Aaron Samuels and you're going to want to, be his boyfriend. That's like how it works.
And that's how it worked for sure.
Yeah.
So you come off of, that doing very well, kind of move on, do Cheaper by the Dozen 2, right? With
Oh yeah.
that crazy cast. Now that was in Toronto.
Yeah. So that was a fun moment. Remember, we auditioned for that on. I remember where all the auditions are that I booked. I don't remember the ones I didn't book, but I remember the ones I booked. It was on Forest Lawn Drive, and I had to go meet Adam Shankman and booked that. And I remember reading for it, and Adam goes, "He's funny. He's crazy, but he's funny. I like him." And I got to go to Canada and work with Steve Martin, Eugene Levy, Carmen Electra, Jamie King, Tom Welling, Hilary Duff, Bonnie Hunt. They're just the
Even
craziest cast.
the young Tyler Lautner, right?
Taylor Lautner.
Taylor Lautner was in that, right?
Shark Boy, who had just been Shark Boy, and then Robbie Amell, who's now
Yeah,
a huge
Robbie.
star,
Yep.
was in it as well, and that's where I became friends with him, and we became best friends. He's a fantastic guy. Which, if you don't know Robbie Mel, go check him out. Him and his wife and his kid are perfect. And if you just want to like look at like what American royalty looks like, there it is.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
and yeah,
So,
that's. And I remember I have a picture saved. It's a it's a printed out photo of my cast chair next to Steve Martin's cast chair. And I remember walking on set for the first time and seeing that. And I mean, I was a Steve Martin fan like you would not believe. I have seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles more than 1,000 times, I think. He was my number one favorite actor. And I got to work with him and be in scenes with him and work with that legend. And it just, watching him work made me a better actor. And there's a scene at the end of the film when I come out and get to say, "Hey, Tom, do you want to meet your grandson?" And I still, to this day, was my favorite moment on screen. Just that one line, because the emotion just came out because I was saying it to Steve Martin. And there was so much just, I don't know what, just joy and pent up excitement that I got to do it. And my character had just had a baby. So it just all kind of connected and clicked. And I remember after it, Adam Shankman comes up to me and goes, "That was good." And it's just one of my favorite moments.
yeah, I bet there were many. So with the with
Yeah.
with that
Yeah.
crew all in one
Uh-huh.
place. So
Yeah.
um, so you come back to Los Angeles after doing that. I mean, you kind of still do the audition cycle.
Yeah.
You kind of were seen as a leading man material,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and funny. Um,
Yeah. Well, I try to be.
yeah, yeah. And so you did a bunch of smaller films during that, like after that. I mean,
Yeah.
not
You
as
do
many.
it. Yeah, I
Go
mean,
ahead.
it's a weird, there wasn't a lot of studio films. We did do I did, what did I do? Dukes of Hazzard the beginning, which was super fun. I, did Van Wilder. So it's really, I always made the joke, like if they can't afford the box office drawing leading man name, get Bennett. He'll step in and be just as funny and handsome, but you can pay him half the price.
Right.
But that was my joke. But the the I got to shoot Dukes of Hazzard the beginning, which was super fun. I mean, whose dream is in it as a little boy? Hey, do you want to, drive the car and slide across the hood and wear the boots and work with Willie Nelson and just get to be one of the Duke boys? Like such a part of pop culture, um, phenomena, really. We and with doing Van Wilder freshman year, that was with Ryan Reynolds. I replaced him. Like what I've always had is this really interesting thing in my career where the movies I did for a long time, like all through my 20s, all had some sort of pop culture relevance and nostalgia to them. There was always like something that was bigger. I always was playing a character that was bigger than myself, if that makes sense. Even from Aaron Samuels, like you're this character that's bigger than life. It's bigger than you. It's the idea of everyone's perfect jock person they were in love with in high school. It's like that idea is bigger than me. Playing Bo Duke, that's bigger than me. Playing Van Wilder, that's bigger than me. Like all these characters themselves just had this pop culture presence that was just kind of really special and weird and bizarre and cool and bad. Like it's so many, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a weird career, but it is a really cool career. Like it's such a bizarre thing to be Jonathan Bennett. Like you're part of all these things. You got to do all these crazy characters and do all these things that people would dream of doing. It's just a really fun thing. We did that movie with Amanda Bynes. Remember, we did Love Wrecked down in
Love
the
wrecked.
Dominican Republic.
Yep.
Shot that with Amanda Bynes. Like, your co-stars are crazy cool and popular pop culture phenomenon. So kind of put me in that world, which was neat.
Right. But did you ever feel like, look, this is all pre Me Too, right? So, um, and I always kind of think you and I talked about this
It was
between us.
yeah, yeah.
It's, I thought that, this people presuming your sexuality,
Oh yeah.
let's say, I mean, really, I think in a way, messed with your career a little bit, because
100%.
Hollywood was still kind of like a bunch of assholes about that
Yeah.
back then. And that wasn't that long ago, but they were.
No, it
So,
wasn't. And it was serious, Nick. That was a huge thing. And as like, a lot of other people that are all on the team, everyone did what they thought which is best. We all thought like they're going to pursue sexualities and now we have to address it or we don't. So let's not, because you have to make the decision, right? Like I always say that there's a group of actors that get no credit for the decisions they had to make because this is pre-Glee. I always say it's PG, pre-Glee. Before, it was cool to be gay. Like it wasn't. It was a different time, and everyone that you would talk to, not just on the team, but just people in general. If you walk up to any person that worked in the Hollywood industry and said, "Hey, this is a leading man that has success. Should he come out publicly and be gay?" 100%, 99.99999% of people would say absolutely not.
right.
Absolutely not. You're crazy. That's suicide. Don't do it. And so we lived in this weird world where I knew who I was, and poor and you and poor other
There's no,
people, not poor, I don't want to
there's
say
no
poor, but like
poor. What's poor?
everyone, no, not poor, but everyone, my team, everyone knows. But you have to just live this life where you're like, I don't know if I can like be myself around certain people. So then it's really hard on you mentally because you're just in this state of like
Well,
just
I don't want to defend it.
crazy.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I think talent's talent, and I hated defending people's sexuality because it's like, really, talent's talent.
right.
So,
And that's
so that's what
yeah,
used to wear you down. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I'm not going to defend someone's sexuality. This is ridiculous. So,
Right. Yeah. And then you always had such a good head about it. You're like, it was, you were so annoyed with it that, that in a good way, just the fact that I can't believe this is the conversation. The conversation we're having is this. The conversation is not, wow, his line, the way he delivered that scene was so good. That didn't lead the
right.
conversation, which it was. And, so it's just a tricky time.
It's
And
just a
it was just,
company town, too. It's a small,
yeah,
stupid
it's a
little
small
town,
town.
ultimately.
They all talk, and I can't believe it was something I had to go through. But it definitely weared on me as an actor. It weared on me as a human because I always and like let me just tell you I'll tell you the therapeutic result that I've been able to share from going through so much therapy in my life because there was a time when I had to go to therapy a lot, not just because my parents passed away. Like when that all happened, I went through a lot of therapy to kind of just like unclutter my brain of like what I've had to deal with. And what I came up with that was really interesting, a way to kind of a metaphor for how I was feeling. It's like during that Mean Girls time, and that my early 20s when I was doing all these movies and up for all these huge parts, it was almost like you felt like a knight who was walking in to a kingdom, and you were the shiny knight that was Aaron freaking Samuels that everyone loves. You're like the shiny knight, everyone loves you, and they're throwing roses at your feet, and they're playing trumpets and they're praising you, and they're like, okay, you're amazing, this is awesome, and you're like, yes, and they're like, but we're just going to take away your sword. Okay, we're just going to take that away, but everything else, keep going, it's great, we love you. But like the thing that makes you strong and makes you you, which is like who you are, we're going to take that part away. Okay, but you do everything else. Everything else is great. We love you. Love you. You're great. So it was this
Right.
weird thing where you had this like just screwed up notion of like value and like who you were. Cause I knew I was a good actor and I
Right.
knew I do a good job and I knew people like me. But at the same time, you're afraid that if they find out everything about me, that all the hard work I've done for a decade and all the hard, hours and hours and emotions I put into my work and creating my life to live my dream to its fullest, they're going to take all that away.
Right.
Right. So you had this like thing where you're like, I know you like me and I know, but at the same time, you don't really like all of me. And if you find out all of me, all this goes away. So it screws their head
Well,
a
it's a
little.
compartmentalization that you're doing. You're
Right.
compartmentalizing, and being an actor anyway, I think a lot of your roles,
Exactly.
everything's in compartments, right? So this
Right.
role's this part of me. So an actor's job is kind of weird that way, because ultimately it is about all these different compartments of who you are as you play characters. But
Absolutely.
but anyway, it's weird. So the thing I'm most excited about, though, I want to know, how did you get connected with Food Network? I'm so excited about Food
Okay,
Network.
let's. You love Food Network. Okay, so let's
Can
talk
I
about
go to
that.
Food Network?
Yes, absolutely, you can. And I always say it's a letdown. It's not. It doesn't smell and look how you want it to. You think it's going to smell like these aromas. Usually, it smells like some type of cleaning product because they're switching over the shows, and like a burnt piece of and like burnt caramel because someone left the stove on.
Oh,
But it is okay, so I was on Dancing with the Stars. So, mom passes away, dad passes away,
yep.
and go through a really dark time. And then what was so fun, Nick, I was watching Dancing with the Stars with my dad when he was on his last month of life, and we were watching it, and he would only turn it on because Danica McKellar, who played Winnie Cooper, who was in a Hallmark movie with me, was good friends with him. They became really close, and he would watch TV because he wants to see her dance. And he would keep
Aw.
pointing at me. He couldn't speak really well, but he would point at me and then point at the TV. And he's like, John, you got to do that. Cut to, he passes away. And the next season they're doing Dancing with the Stars. They call me and go, do you want to be on the show? And I literally just started crying. I was like, oh, that's on a God wink right there. Like, that's some doors being pulled. So I go on Dancing with the Stars, and I
How did you
learned
do
that
on that, by the way? Because I've never seen it.
horrible,
I'm not.
horrible.
Oh, you did horrible.
Oh my, not horrible. I did fine. Let's just say this, Nick. What I learned from Dancing with the Stars is I'm not a dancer, and I'm okay with that. That's what I learned. I was like,
well, what better place
probably
to
not for
learn that
me.
than national television? So.
Yeah, what better place to learn it than 25 million people watching live? So I do that. Like, let's put it this way, Nick. Tommy Chong, who's like 75 years old and stoned, made it farther than I did. Like, Tommy beat me. So it was a nuts thing. So anyway, I do the show, and then what I learned is that while I'm there, I wasn't really concerned about the dancing. I was watching the best of the best of the best, Tom Bergeron. That's who I was interested in. I was like, I want to do what he's doing. And I called and got an agent and started going on hosting auditions. I'm like, I want to host shows. And as soon as I walked into Food Network and said, hey, I want to do this, I did the audition. I did the live film. They're like, yep, there he is. You're the cake guy. And so it just clicked instantly. And it was so much fun because for 15 years, I had to kind of take some of Jonathan and put him in different boxes and not really be your full self, kind of be the cool guy version of Jonathan instead of the like over the top nuts Labrador retriever version of Jonathan that, feels good to Jonathan to be Jonathan. So for the first time ever, I got to go on a set and just be me. Like I said, how should I do this? And the producer looked at me and she goes, we hired you to be you. Go be you. And that was almost therapy. It was almost like a really neat thing where I'm like, I can be as zany and wild and wacky as I want. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. I said, okay, great.
So
So
is
I
that
started
like an
hosting.
annual contract you have, like to do? Like, I mean, how does
Yeah,
that work with them?
oh, I've hosted 170 some episodes.
Wow.
It's been insane. It's insane how many episodes I've hosted. And my time there probably will be not forever because it's time to always do other things. But for 170 episodes, I made so many kids happy and so many people happy watching at home, laughing at the stupid jokes I'd make, and it was a really fun experience to do. And then
How
you
much
get to
weight do
go.
you gain?
So I go from a size 32 waist to a size 36 by the end of the season, and I'm not joking.
Are you
We have
serious?
we have 3 pairs of the same jeans. Like we have
Wow.
3 pairs, and I gain weight through the season because all those cakes are there, and they're made by the best cake makers in the world. And at first, I was nervous about like watching my weight, and I said, "Screw that! Like, how many times of a special life moment do you get to be the person that eats the best cake, which is delicious, from the best cake makers in the world in one day?" Like, I'm like, I just like said, screw it. I'm aware I'm going to gain weight and we're going to lose it before the next season. It's going to be fine. And
That's
I just went for it because when else do you get to that opportunity? Screw it.
no, that's awesome. I love
Yeah,
that. So everything like is basically shut down in Hollywood right now, right?
yeah.
People aren't doing
Hmm.
stuff, but you guys kind of managed to film a movie in this? Is that
Yeah.
what I'm
Oh yeah.
understanding?
Absolutely. We definitely. So I filmed the first ever um SAG film since COVID started. It's called Harvest of the Heart, and we shot it in Oklahoma about a month and a half ago, and it was a completely weird yet doable experience. You can show up and have actors quarantine and have the crew wear a mask and have the actors show up and like be safe, get really good shots, have a good movie, and everyone can go home. I mean, it was weird at first
Is it a
because when you show
sound
up,
stage though, or is it
no,
outdoors?
we did it outside in like a vineyard, so
Yeah.
there was like plenty of space, right? There was like no one had to be on top of each other, and fresh air blowing, and it was really good. But it was weird at first because when you walk in, you expect that you're going to walk up. You know how it is, and they've been on a million sets. Like you walk into hair and makeup, and you're going to give your hair and makeup girls a big hug, and you're going to see all your friends, and that just didn't happen. But once you got past that weirdness of, oh, I'm not being rude, we're just not allowed to do this. Once everyone kind of settled into that, it became business as usual. And I mean, I think it was really great proof we did it safely. Movies can be shot. I know they're shooting other movies. Movies can be shot and it can be done well. And it can be done. It's just you got to put in the precautions, but it's good. And one other thing I want to talk about hosting, the coolest moment ever, Nick, I have to tell you, because I host New Year's Eve Times Square, right? So
Ah.
I after hosting Food Network, when my first gig I was ever on television was TRL. I was a VJ for the day, and it was at 1515 Broadway in New York City in Times Square, and I did that VJ for a day performance where I went out and like did a thing and hosted like my first teleprompter read live on TV. To be back there 15 years later, outside in the middle of Times Square on a podium, standing outside of that window and having them go 3, 2, 1, you're live, and getting to say the words "Happy New Year, Times Square," and it echoing across to 2 million
Mhm.
people live in the square. That was a full circle career pinch me moment. Like that was crazy.
You're a better man than me. That would be like my worst nightmare.
It
So,
would.
but
It would.
I'm glad it worked out for you. But
Yeah.
but so you've got, when's this film? When's Harvest of the Heart plan? I mean, how are they
I'm
releasing it, or when?
I don't I don't know who's bought it yet. So
Okay.
it's got a distributor. They're buying it, but it'll be this fall because Harvest. So it'll be on one of the TV stations this fall. So check it out. You can just go on IMDb and it'll tell you when it'll release.
Awesome. Very nice. So
Yes.
so before we leave, because I do a lot of music on this lovely show,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to ask you: did you do some of the Ariana Grande? Did you do like video or no?
Yeah. Also, I have the weirdest life in the world. Remember,
Tell
like
me, tell me.
the weirdest pop culture life. So I get a message from Ariana Grande's manager on Instagram, and it was Thanksgiving, and he goes, "Hey, Ariana wants you to be in her music video. Do you want to do this?" And I said, first of all, this is a joke, and call my agent if you want this. If you want to talk about this. And so then my agent calls and said, "Hey, so Ariana Grande's manager wants you to be in their video." And I said, don't they want someone that's young with abs and like pecs, that's gonna look good? Like, I don't want to be on the video. And they said, no, they're recreating Mean Girls and they want you to play Aaron Samuels. I go, oh, that makes sense. So I walk outside to my friends who are eating Thanksgiving dinner and I go, do I want to be in Ariana Grande's music video? And they all drop their forks and they go, yes. I go, yes, I do. So I got to go and shoot her video and literally put on Aaron Samuels' clothes again and get the hair done the same. It was like seeing an old friend. You
You
walk.
probably look the same.
Yeah, I did. It was weird. I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, I look the same. And it was really cool. Ariana Grande, Nick, she's the best. She's the
Mm.
best, the best, the best. I have a cookbook out, and it's a Mean Girls parody cookbook. And I said to her, like jokingly before, she was first of all so excited to meet me, so like I was so excited to meet her. Like we were both just fangirling over each other. And I said, oh, I have this book. I should carry this book in the shot. And right before we did the shot, she goes, go get it. And held up production So I could run and get my book out of my car and then come back to set. And I walked down the hall in the movie with my book. She goes, let's sell that shit. And that, like, she, like, just to think that's like, to have an artist go and do that, that just speaks volumes, like making sure you shine as well. She was so nice to all the, background performers, and like would go up to them and talk and just be like, where'd you get your dress? I love this. Or, oh my gosh, I love your makeup today. It looks really good. Like, just a freaking star. Like, she was just a star.
I love hearing that. What's the name of this cookbook of yours? What is this?
It's called the Burn Cookbook.
Okay.
In Mean Girls, we have the Burn Book. This is the Burn Cookbook.
Tina hasn't sued you yet for any reason.
Well, kinda. Not Tina, but at first they
the evil corporation.
The evil corporate. The studio got a little sassy with us when we first started making it, but then once they saw it, they're like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty cool."
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good. I'm glad you're not in court. So.
Yes, me too.
Cool. Well, dude, thank you so much. I mean, I could go on because there's
much
more I'd like
hours.
to say, but I do have a little stop here going on. But I appreciate you doing this. I love you dearly.
Me too.
I'm glad you're safely somewhere. I'm glad you're in a relationship. I wanted to talk about that. We didn't go there, but
well, next time we'll do another one.
Yeah, we will. So, but I'm really grateful for your time.
All right. Thank you, Nikki.
Enjoy
I'm so
your
happy.
Quarantine.
You too, bud. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Well, that's our show this week. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned a little something. To follow what's going on with this podcast, you can go to theradicalpod.com. Theradicalpod.com. You'll find show notes and past episodes, and even a little swag there if you want a t-shirt or a hat. Also, I would be honored if you'd subscribe at Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Till next week.